Good evening. I hereby call this August the 8th meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. All committee members are participating in person because a non-committee member, Councilmember Scipio, is participating virtually. The North Carolina General Statutes state that this meeting is a virtual or remote meeting and is being streamed live. We have all committee members here today. We have Councilmember John Larson, who's the Vice Chair. We have with us Councilmember Kevin Mundy. We have Councilmember Barbara Haynes-Burke and myself. As we like to do every single meeting, we begin this committee meeting by thanking our fire department, our emergency management department, and our police departments for the work they do to keep the people of this community safe. I mentioned the police department last today. It was not a slight, but I did want to make a quick comment, members of the committee, before we begin. We are aware of the local community news where Chief Thompson has announced her retirement. Chief, I know I speak on behalf of the committee. We just want to thank you for bringing honor to our city by protecting and serving our citizens. And we just thank you for everything that you have done and will continue to do. And if you would join me in giving the Chief a round of applause. Thank you for your service. Committee and council members, as you're aware, items on consent are typically approved with one sweeping motion. Today, we have a need to pull item C2. So members of the committee, I would entertain a motion to approve the balance.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly seconded. All in favor of approval, please vote yes. Opposers, no. That is approved unanimously. We'll move to item C2. Madam Clerk, if you call the item, please.
C2, resolution authorizing acceptance of a grant from the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program for the 13th year funding of the Forsyth County Joint DWI Task Force and authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement between the City of Winston-Salem and the County of Forsyth, accepting said grant funding and execution of a mutual assistance agreement between the City, County, and the Town of Kernersville for continued implementation of the DWI Joint Task Force.
Thank you. I think Mr. Mundy asked this item to be pulled. Mr. Mundy, do you have a question or would you like a presentation?
I would like a very brief presentation. 13 years into this is not new at all, but it is somewhat new to me. So 2 to 3 minutes about how the task force works, kind of what the business model is, if there are officers that specifically are assigned to that and that is their only job, or just tell me how this task force works, if you would.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Chief Weaver is recognized.
Good evening, Chair Taylor and other members of the Public Safety Committee. Our DWI task force has been in effect for 13 years. Basically, the way it's set up is that we have officers from the Winston-Salem Police Department. We are also required to supervise the unit. The task force also consists of deputies from Forsyth County Sheriff's Office, as well as officers from the Kernersville Police Department. And basically, that's their only job, is to go out looking for DWIs. Primarily at night, a lot of weekends that they're working. They have been very successful in removing people that are driving while impaired from our roadways. They've saved a lot of lives that have done that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mundy, any other questions for Assistant Chief Weaver? Thank you, sir. Mr. Mundy, do you want to
move for approval for C2?
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and properly seconded. All in favor, please vote yes. This item has been approved unanimously. Thank you. We only have one item on the general agenda. We'll move to item G1, Madam Clerk.
G1, resolution authorizing execution of an independent contractor agreement with National Medical Services, Inc., DBA NMS Labs for laboratory testing and related services for the Winston-Salem Police Department.
Thank you, ma'am. As you may be aware, some time ago we did send testing to the SBI for forensic testing. Because of some of the challenges we faced there and some of the backlogs in 2014, our staff, this committee and council approved getting our own lab right here in Winston-Salem. It is now time to extend the contract or have a conversation about it. So item G1 talks a little bit about that. And given the presentation, I turn it over to Ms. Patrice Toney, who is our Assistant City Manager, to introduce the item.
Good evening, Chairman Taylor and members of the Public Safety Committee. This item is coming before you as historically you're aware that the police department used a state crime lab to process their forensic testing. Since 2014, they have brought the lab on site and has used the National Medical Services to provide this service. This has been really effective for the police department in processing forensic testing and helped with actually court cases. So there's less court cases being dismissed for items being delayed when they were sent to the state lab. So the contract is up for renewal. The proposed term will last for a year, ending in June of 2023, and it will be up for extension for an additional 2 terms thereafter. And so we have the person over forensic, Aaron Warren is here, as well as Lori Sykes, the attorney for public safety, if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for Ms. Tony or Police Department staff? Mr. Larson.
Yes, thank you, Tony. As I understand it, the forensic lab,
Here you go.
Thank you. I think that was better. The forensic lab is a joint operation between the county and the city.
This would be a contract with the National Medical Services, but I will let you all want to, Aaron can answer this.
I mean, my understanding was that we had a consolidated forensic operation within the
Good evening,
county.
Chairman and committee. So this is actually just the Winston-Salem Police Department and NMS Labs. It's a contract just between us. They provide qualitative drug testing as well as blood testing for the presence of drugs and alcohol. The sheriff's office is not part of this contract.
So we're not processing any county any county problems or any county research on this lab,
Not through that lab, no.
not to this part of it. This is
No.
strictly within our own city limits.
Correct.
Okay. And do we do anything with staff testing in this, or is this strictly criminal investigation?
Strictly criminal investigations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Mundy.
You said not in this lab, so do we have some consolidation or some crossover with the county?
Correct. Our division, the Forensic Services Division, we process crime scenes for Winston-Salem Police Department and the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office. So that's where the crossover lies.
But not the lab testing?
Correct.
Okay. I noted a couple of ideas, questions, suggestions. It seems like since this is a cost savings for the state, is there any possibility for us to get any kind of funding from the state to help? This is I don't know, this is a proper question for you, but maybe for Ms. Tony, have we ever investigated whether there's any grant money to help offset our expense, since we're saving them money in the long run? And this food for thought, no need to answer. Could the lab do any other types of testing, for instance, help push those rape kits through? But I think that's more of a state level than a local level. And then is there any excess capacity, or could we build excess capacity to do testing for Forsyth County or smaller surrounding cities and towns that don't have their own, that could help us offset the cost? We could charge them a fee. So just food for thought.
I can actually speak to 2 of those things. The rape kits are all done through the state crime lab. NMS Labs does not do any DNA testing of any kind anymore. Okay. And to the last part, other agencies are able to use NMS Labs. They just pay them directly. And that somewhat offsets our costs. If they do a certain amount of outside agencies versus just Winston-Salem Police Department cases, it can lessen the amount that we have to pay them, excuse me.
So it's a case-by-case charge as opposed to kind of a retainer fee?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am. If there are no questions, I would entertain a motion on item G1, please.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and proper seconded. All in favor, please vote yes. Opposers, no. Item G1 is approved unanimously. This has been an extremely short meeting. That is all the business that has been documented to go forward for today. Members of the committee, staff, is there any other business that should be considered for the good of the order?
I'd like to hear just a little bit from Councilmember Burke about her meeting on Wednesday night.
Councilmember Burke?
Oh, thank you, Councilmember Monday. I'm happy to share. Am I on?
Yes.
The meeting, the town hall meeting on Monday will be a follow-up,
Wednesday?
Wednesday, Wednesday at 6 o'clock at Carl Russell will be a follow-up from the town hall we had May 25th on gun violence. And the purpose of the meeting will be to report back to the community. We listed that evening strategies that were suggested by community members to address gun violence. And as we listed those strategies on the screen that night, we also said that we would come back. This would not be a one and done, and we would come back again. And now is a good time to report back because on August 20th, the saturation patrol that we have implemented with our outstanding Winston-Salem Police Department and the Sheriff's Office will be ending because the SROs that were being used with the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office, they'll go back to the schools. So we want to look at the data, and we want to give the community members a chance to see the impact that these strategies that we implemented have had on crime and gun violence in our community. So that's the purpose. And again, we'll allow community members to have the opportunity to make comments, ask questions pertaining to the data that's shared regarding the strategies that were implemented. Thank you for asking.
Councilmember Mundy, thank you for bringing that up, and Councilmember Burke, thank you for the information. Is there any further business for consideration? Seeing none, we'll consider this committee meeting to be adjourned. Thank you.